Hello, brothers and sisters. This is Sabata with the Equatoria Advocacy Foundation. Today is August 18th. This is the day when South Sudanese are commemorating the Torit Mutiny, and I will be analyzing uh, what I think is a betrayal of the ambition of the freedom fighters, those who have fought the Anyanya One. Their ambition have actually been betrayed by some people who call themselves brothers and sisters of the freedom fighters themselves. And this is how it happened. When Anyanya war was fought, it took as long as 16 to 17 years, and eventually an agreement was signed in Addis Ababa that has eventually given the revolutionaries, that is the Anyanya One, a deal to have what is called a form of quasi-autonomy. And it was called Government of the Regional Autonomy. And in that Government of Regional Autonomy, the ambition of the leader of the Anyanya One has been betrayed by a partner that happened to have come from the incumbent side, because there were also South Sudanese who were living in Khartoum at the time, and that is the incumbent with whom the Anyanya were fighting with. And they came and they formed a government of the South, and eventually it was at that time that the ambition of the freedom fighters were actually betrayed. Before I get into that, I would like to read very quickly just a description of who the Anyanya fighters are, and I'm going to be very brief because the Anyanya people are known so much and by South Sudanese, and it's all over Google and YouTube, and I'm just gonna give some facts about these Anyanya, who they are, for youth who might not have known who the Anyanya One are. The Anyanya were a South Sudanese separatist rebel army. They have been fighting to separate the southern part of Sudan from the northern part of Sudan. That is from Sudan, actually. During the first Sudanese civil war, and that took place from 1955 to 1972. That was when the deal was reached. Anyanya means poison from a snake, and this is a word that belongs to language of the people of the Madi tribe. And this is because the leader of the Anyanya was or is a Madi by tribe, and his name is Joseph Lago. The Anyanya had developed a flag, and when you look at the flag of the Anyanya, it has red, and then green, and then white, and then black in the middle, and the pattern repeats itself. And in the black line that is in the middle, it's kind of thick, and in the middle of it there is a buffalo, and it comes with variations. You know, there are some variants. In some other variants, the buffalo is not there. Instead, there is a snake with an arrow. And the third variant is, it is just those stripes of colors without any symbol in the thick black line which is in the middle. So the red that's on the top symbolizes blood that has been spilled during the fight, and the green symbolizes the green vegetation, and the white symbolizes hope for peace, and the black, the thick black in the middle, symbolizes the people who are fighting the war. And as I've said, they have fought this war, and it took as long as about 16 to 17 years. And right following that, an agreement has been reached by the incumbent, who was actually president of Sudan at the time, and his name was Jafar Nimeri. He passed on. And the agreement was signed in Addis Ababa, and the person who headed the delegates who came from the side of the incumbent is a lawyer by the name of Abel Alier. And of course, Joseph Lago, who headed the movement, came as head of the delegation from the revolutionary side. And they reached the agreement, and the agreement promised the southern part of South Sudan, or rather the southern part of Sudan, a quasi-autonomy. That was a government of a regional autonomy. Now, in that government of regional autonomy, it was structured such that it had 3 provinces, that is the province of Equatoria, and the province of Upper Nile, and the province of Bahar al-Ghazal, and then there is also a district, and then council. All right, so that is how it has been structured. So ideologically, the revolutionaries, I would like to make this footnote that South Sudanese basically benefited so much from the orientation that the revolutionaries have provided at the time they fought the war. They basically politically opened or brought awareness to South Sudanese on the concept of liberty and freedom, and the idea that they should govern themselves and not be ruled by the northerners, because the northerners were predominantly Muslims and are cultured very different, and the southerners were not Muslims but predominantly Christians, and were cultured also very different from the northerners, and they have not agreed in so much. And the revolutionaries of the Anyanya at the time felt that the northerners have been subjecting the southerners into conditions of living that the southerners are not appreciating, and for that reason then they fought, wanting to separate the south from the north. But let me just leave that footnote there. But then when that government of regional autonomy was formed, the lawyer who headed the delegation of the incumbent at the time became a president of the High Executive Council. The government of the South was kind of structured such that there is the executory part of the government governing chamber was called a High Executive Council. That's the executory part, and then the legislative part was called the Assembly. And the Assembly was centered in a place called Juba, and Juba sits inside the Equatoria province. So the president of the High Executive Council happened to be the lawyer who has headed the delegation that has come from the incumbent side, and ideologically, he and those who have actually came and formed part of the government of the South were not ideologically groomed or built like the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries are more of people who believe in liberty and believed that the function of powers should be structured such that authority should not be centralized in the High Executive Council, or rather in the Legislative Assembly, which was in Juba only. It brings clusters of politicians competing in seats around and bringing all those kind of hatred and lack of harmony, and also they believe that these three provinces are kind of hosting people who are distinct in culture, and I'm talking about the ideology of the revolutionaries. And so the revolutionaries, through their leader Joseph Lago, were proposing that let there be a decentralized system of government where each province should have its own assembly, and pretty much have the High Executive Council be the central authority for execution of policies. And Joseph Lago, who was the chairman of the revolutionaries, he has written a piece with regards to that, and I'm going to read off that piece really quick, and that will give us quickly what he has in mind as far as ideology is concerned. And then he also mentioned where that ideology got rebutted by what form of practices at the time. So, and just also to remind you that as the revolutionaries basically oriented South Sudanese to be matured in politics, the revolutionaries were able to also groom people like Dr. John Garang, who headed the second civil war of the Sudan, and they basically share similar ideology, because when John Garang himself presented the view in which he wanted New Sudan to be structured, you can tell that he is a person who adheres to principles of liberty, because John Garang himself, when he presented his view of how New Sudan should look like, and that was in the second civil war, he gave about 4 tracks, of which track number 1 was basically a confederate system of government, and he said that eventually would determine whether there will be harmony and people will diffuse in order to go to track 2, which eventually will form what is called a federation, where there will be a federal authority on the top, and then eventually the communities will merge, and then we'll have what is called a government of a bilateral form of a federation, where there will be an authority, and then or else. And he was giving the other option that if things don't work out, then if the two happens to separate, so be it, because revolutions are always fought with the purpose to make conditions of people better. If revolutionaries who go out and carry out a revolution always believe that the system that they have lived in do not serve humanity well, and they believe that when they become free from the rule that they think are not serving humanity well, they would always do better. So those are the purposes of revolutions generally. But the point I'm just trying to make here is that the person who came and led the second civil war and the leader of the first civil war, that is of the Anyanya, share so much as far as ideology is concerned, and there are people who embrace the principles of liberty. And quickly, let me see, in a piece that Joseph Lago, who is the chairman of the Anyanya 1, wrote. First of all, the piece that he wrote is titled Decentralization, and this is the system of government that he wanted to be embraced during the government of the regional autonomy. The document is titled Decentralization and Necessity for the Southern Provinces, and he was referring to those three provinces, that is the province of Equatoria, the province of Upper Nile, and the province of Bahar al-Ghazal. Now, I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to take some parts that would be justifying some of the claims that I'm making here. So, at a point, he wrote this. On initiating the ideals that are incorporated in Articles 6 and 7 of the Permanent Constitution of Sudan, the need to accommodate the aspirations of the various communities in the country must have taken precedent over all other considerations. So you can tell from what he has just said here. This is a person who is basically saying that the Article 6 and Article 7 of the Permanent Constitution of Sudan basically is giving the consideration to the communities, to the people of the community, giving more consideration than anything. It's a priority, actually, for the people's voices to be heard, you see. And this is, of course, a concept. But then how does then happen? How does that happen through policies and, of course, or through structures of governance? We are going to get into that. And of course, this is the basis for the call of the decentralization, and also the basis for which Garang himself objected to the idea that the Khartoum regime, and that was around 1983, later on when he fought the second civil war, it was based on the idea of making sure that communities are not subjected to rule against their will. And Garang himself clarified in his objectives that the Khartoum regime at the time tried to impose an Islamic Arab state to the exclusion of those who are not even Muslims. And he was talking about the Southerners, and he said governance shouldn't be done that way. It should be done with consensus through a social contract, rather than putting a gunpoint at somebody else's head, just like duress. So let me go on reading what Lagu kept saying. There is no doubt that with a heterogeneous society like ours, and indeed South Sudan is a country that is heterogeneous. It comprises of, so far the constitution says, 64 tribes like ours, linked by little more than the Berlin political geography. Of course, that was during the imperial time, around 1884-85, when the Berlin Conference was held, and our own nature of being against domination and exploitation. Nothing short of granting the various communities the right to exercise control over their own affairs will ever lead to the attainment of stability or even peace. Basically, this is what Lagu is saying. Lagu is saying, with the nature of the people of South Sudan, if you don't guarantee them freedom to choose how they want to live, that is basically liberty. If you don't guarantee them liberty, and you kind of push them or control them, there will be no stability, not even peace. Now, if anyone has doubts, seek advice of President Nimeri. So in other words, because this is the person with whom he fought during the war. Now, in the case of North and South conflict, peace and unity were achieved only after granting granting self-government to the southern provinces. So he was basically saying that the north and the south came to have peace and unity only after the Addis Ababa agreement was signed. That was when the south was granted an autonomy of the southern provinces. Every time he says provinces, he's talking about the three provinces, the Equatoria, the Upper Nile, and the Bahr al-Ghazal. According to the system advocated by SSU, SSU is Sudan Socialist Union. That's a party that was run by Nimeri at the time. The government of the southern region should have proceeded to establish autonomous provincial governments in which the people of each province shall have the ultimate say in all matters of policy and the administration of their provinces. So basically what he is saying here is that he is basically saying here that the people of these three provinces should have been given the okay based on those articles that I've earlier mentioned, the Article 6 and Article 7 of the Permanent Constitution. Now, based on those articles, those people of the provinces should have actually been allowed to have an ultimate saying of policy making in their provinces, you see. And then, of course, that can be done. The only way people can have ultimate saying in policies is when you bring what is called an assembly or parliament, whatever you call your legislative chamber of government, closer to the people, and you allow the people to send representatives there. Then that is the way people speak. That is how they put their saying as far as policies are being made. This is because when they through election or through their local election bring those representatives of theirs, it is assumed that those representatives usually take their voices. The representatives go to what is called the local constituents and listen to the people, to the people's concerns, and then come to the assembly in order to deliberate with others on what is called policies that would eventually take care of those concerns that happen to be brought from the local constituencies. People of each, wow. This will okay. This is what Lagu is saying. This will reduce, and what is this? That is if now you get local constituents with if you take if you get people to decide on policy making, that is by on our situation in South Sudan at the time, that is by getting assemblies to those provinces, that is you're taking government to the people there. He is saying that this will reduce wrangling amongst southern politicians for equal participation to the regional level, you see. So he's basically saying that now if you give these people, if you decentralize these powers like that, then the politicians will not all come and just wrangle in the regional level, that is go to the people's assembly. It used to be called, the assembly in Juba used to be called the People's Assembly, you see. So he's basically saying if you now distribute the assemblies to the provinces, then the politicians will not just go and meet in Juba at the level of the region and compete and wrangle there. Okay, let's proceed. What is he saying? In his state, the people will be wrangling for positions and the right to have a say in the provinces. say in in their provinces, that would be the problem of the sons and daughters of those provinces concerned. So basically he is saying wrangling will be done on those provinces. It will not be at the regional level, but people will go and wrangle in provinces. Like for example, people in Upper Nile, for example, those who would be competing at the provincial level, at the level of province, would go and wrangle, and those are sons and daughters of the people of Upper Nile. And the same with the people of Bahr al-Ghazal. Sons and daughters of people of Bahr al-Ghazal will be wrangling in the assembly in Bahr al-Ghazal. And Equatoria will have the same. They will also have an assembly for a province level, leave alone the regional level. In this way, then the regional level will be free of politicians coming up there. So basically at the regional level, they will be dealing with the High Executive Council will be there, and pretty much some ministers, regional ministers here and there, and some seats here and there that's based on those structures. Down the ladder would be the council at the district. I don't know if I had said this earlier, that the structure of the government at the time was this is the southern regional autonomy. It has 3 provinces. It also have a district and then council. So he's saying down the ladder would be the council at the district. I'm sorry, I think I lost the paper or something. Yes, so and the South conflict, peace and unity. Oh, okay, so yes, basically this is what he's saying. Basically, so what he's saying is that once you decentralize the powers like that, then you will have all those local politicians will go to their provinces and basically wrangle there, and just not wrangle at the top level here at the regional level. And this is ideologically how Lagu perceived the regional autonomy to be running, and eventually that eventually got interpreted, and of course it was given a name in the local dialect that it's a kokora, means dividing people, even though it's not really it's just dividing administration to facilitate or to make it easier to prevent problems, even though the Southerners were still going to be united under the High Executive Council, because that is the executory part of the governing chamber, you see. So basically that was just a division on administration to prevent problems. But Lagu also did give his disappointments, and I'm going to read from a continuation of what he has written here. He said that unfortunately people now, let me start from a little bit up. Let me put my glasses. Okay, so Lagu said that unfortunately people now responsible for the Southern Sudan government not only shows no interest in this policy, that is the policy of devolving powers, shows no interest in this policy of involvement, but show no respect for political sentiments of those whose destiny they guide. So basically he is saying that this style of governing, in which you involve the voices of the people through their representatives at the provincial level, is that he's saying that those in power were showing no interest to do that and showing no respect. Shows no interest in this policy of involvement, but show no respect for political sentiments of those whose destiny they guide. That is the destiny of the people. Some areas such as Mangala, Luri, and Logo, and Collier around Rajaf, to mention a few, that means there are some more, have been forced into living in a state of uncertainty because of unplanned Dinka settlements and movements. All right, this is not me saying it. This is what Lago has written. No decision taken by any. This statement has been repeated. No decision taken by any council at any level in those areas would have any weight, since the regional government apparently connives at the activities of the Dinka tribesmen. I don't know what connives here mean. Maybe just don't even take it serious. I would assume from the sentence, connives at the activities of the Dinka tribesmen. Maybe not take those activities serious, and he's referring to the activities of taking cattle, here and there anyhow, and basically he is saying that the decisions that would be taken by the local councils, or whatever laws that the local council have that could have prevented those kind of roaming of the Dinka with their cattle, wouldn't make any difference, or it wouldn't make any effect, because the regional government, that is the top government, connives around the Dinka activities. I don't know what connives mean, but probably just take it easy. They don't show any desire to discipline those kind of behaviors at a certain standard. At the provincial levels, the commissioners in the southern region, who are supposed to be the chairman of security committees in their provinces, all right, in those provinces. So now we are learning that the commissioners were supposed to be responsible for the security committees in their provinces, as well as being the chief overall administrators, have been rendered toothless, bulldogs by the regional government. So that means they were not respecting what would be referred by the Western concept as jurisdictions. Issues pertaining a province should have been limited to those provinces. The regional authorities shouldn't just bulldog, or rather just kind of step in the issues of those provinces arbitrarily or randomly. That is only if those kind of authorities were limited by certain powers expressed in the constitution of the country. But unfortunately, the regional level, just based on what Lagu is saying, intervene on those issues. So in other words, if he referred to these Dinka tribe movements here, So in other words, he is saying that even if those guys roam anyhowly, the local provincial authorities couldn't do anything, because the regional government are eventually not respecting the authorities of the provinces. Maybe similar to our situation today, and people kept talking about devolution of powers, so that the power on the top should not intervene on issues of local government, because every time that happens, it basically promotes chaos, because those at the local levels can no longer organize themselves with laws that they think are deemed good to organize themselves. Security matters are taken at the regional police headquarters by the Inspector General, who is a Dinka, and police officers and men are posted or transferred at his will without any consultation with the commissioners. This is what I've just been saying. There is no limited jurisdiction. So basically what he's saying is that the Inspector General is describing there who is a Dinka, and police officers and men are posted or transferred at his will, at the Inspector General's will, all right, without any consultation with the commissioners who are supposed to be heading the security committees in the provinces. At times, people who are considered by the province security committee as posing a security threat to the province are released by the Inspector General or any of his commissioners without even giving the mere courtesy of informing the provincial commissioner concerned. Administrators who head the people's local government system are made to carry dual allegiance to both the regional government and the provincial government, instead of through the latter in the to the former, that is the province, to the former, that is regional level. No doubt this has adverse affected efficiency, because these officers go to solve their problems where it is politically inconvenient. This is an ideological problem here. This is Lagu, the chairman of the when I say this is an ideological problem here, I'm just saying that Lagu has a way of saying things, but he is basically saying those who are in power, because Lagu, as I've said, the president of the High Executive Council was Abel Alier, and Lagu also came at a point, but then he was also taken out, replaced by some other presidents of the High Executive Council. So basically, from what we are reading from Lagu here, it looks like at most cases, the High Executive Council has been predominantly controlled by people who had once been with the incumbent, that's with the North, Khartoum, and they are people of a particular tribe. He mentioned them earlier here, and he is saying those people operate in a manner that they don't give regards to authorities of provinces, and with those kind of practices, it basically destroyed the decentralization system that was imposed at a point in the regional autonomy. Because at a point, the regional autonomy went through what is called a kokora. And basically, Lagu is now complaining. He was the driver of the decentralization policy. But with what he is saying here right now, he is saying those kind of attitudes did not help the these decentralized powers to function as they were supposed to function. You see, this is what Lagu is basically saying here, that these decentralized powers were supposed to work at the provincial level without intrusion from the regional level. But this has not been happening. The authorities of the regional level intruded in the provincial affairs without giving respect. You remember those words he used them earlier, that the provincial authorities were not given respect. So this basically gives us an understanding of Lagu, who was a freedom fighter, comes and have a perception of how governance is supposed to be done during the regional autonomy, and the partners who have also came and partnered in the government of the regional autonomy, who have come from the incumbent side also came with their own ways of thinking of how they wanted government to run. So basically, Lagu advocated for government to be run such that powers should be devolved to the locals, and the authority on the top should not intervene on local issues arbitrarily. But that is not how the partners who have come from the incumbent side saw the whole thing. But the good news is the way Lagu thinks is shared with a captain at the time called John Garang, who happened to have also came out and studied and went back and at a point in 1983, of course, this Addis Ababa agreement, this regional autonomy lasted for only 11 years, from 1972 to 1983, and Nimeri dissolved it out. But then John Garang, who was a captain and shared the same ideology with those of Lagu, then started a second civil war, which has resulted in the country going through a referendum in 2005, and people voted for a separation, and South Sudan was born. Now, when South Sudan was born, unfortunately, Dr. John Garang died. Lagu has become very old. Now, their ideology is no longer working, even though the gentleman who is running the country right now fought in the civil in the second civil war, but the way he's running the country, he is running the country with advice from many of those who had been with the incumbent side on the first government of the regional autonomy, and until the referendum was held. Those are people who have come from Khartoum, and again are driving the current president of South Sudan, the country that was born, with the same mentalities of a centralized system of government, of which the Southerners consistently fought. You see, so basically, it's I don't know if you're able to see that picture. So the Southerners from this Torit mutiny, Anyanya 1, went like that, fought because they wanted liberty, and now that they got a country, but their country is run under advice from people who have constantly been sitting in the north and are run under the same ideology. Now we are having another problem going on in south, where people are not seeing decentralization of powers going on. Right now, people are stuck. Devolution of powers is not happening, and there has been a civil war that had gone, and there is now a revitalized transitional government of national unity going on, and there is a call for a decentralized system, devolution of powers to happen, where the central authority will be limited in their intervention on local affairs, but that doesn't seem to be forthcoming. And again, the country is having a group of people who can be called rebels outside and are called holdouts, because they are not going in saying, you know what, we want another forum to negotiate how the country should be run. So basically, this is some analysis that I would like to share with you. Today is August 18th. People are commemorating the Torit mutiny. That is the Anyanya 1. Anyanya 1, we have been expecting that it will leave us with a legacy that is positive, but I think we are still struggling as South Sudanese, and we're crossing our fingers that hopefully we will break through misery that we are going through. You know, people fight revolutions not for the sake of fighting revolutions. People want to live better. You know, if revolutions get fought and then people go live a miserable life, sometimes people start questioning themselves about the blood that has been spilled during the war. tend to have just gone waste, you see. Also praying to God that the Holy Spirit intervenes and gives us a form of wisdom so that we can deliberate on our issues better. Thank you very much. God bless you.